Welcome back. In your military news this week, we begin in the Navy, where a combination of high operations tempo and COVID-related measures created major impacts on parts of the fleet. A combination of long AtSea missions and quick turnarounds created tough conditions for sailors and put long miles on some ships. Navy Times' Jeff Zazulowicz has more on the story.
2020 was a hard year for everybody, of course, but within the U.S. Navy, it was arguably even harder. Navy leadership struggled to keep ships at sea COVID-free after the aircraft carrier Theodore Roosevelt suffered a mass infection in the spring of 2020. The COVID mitigation measures for the U.S. surface fleet in particular involved no more port calls or stepping on dry land, sometimes for record-breaking stints at a time. This meant several ships in 2020 broke the record for consecutive days at sea. The U.S. warship Stout spent 215 consecutive days at sea, which is a modern record. It limped back into port in Norfolk, rusted out, and with a crew that was obviously ready to hit dry land. So basically, you had a couple things going on in 2020 with the Navy. You had COVID, which meant sailors have to isolate before they get on the ship for a few weeks, taking them away from their families right before a deployment. Then they get on and they basically can't leave the ship for the entire deployment because of the risk of bringing COVID back. And then at the same time, the Navy and the Pentagon didn't slow down the pace of operations in 2020 due to the pandemic. Somewhere in the Pentagon decision-making rings, there was a thought that you still needed to push ships and aircraft carriers out to the Middle East and to the Pacific and to other areas to showcase, American military presence. And so that's kind of what 2020 had wrought for the surface fleet and appears to be continuing into 2021. Before a carrier strike group goes on into deployment, normally they do something called a Comp 2X, which is like a kind of pre-deployment exercise. In pre-COVID times, you'd go do a Comp 2X and then be able to go back to your family, for a few weeks before the official deployment started. But the Navy has opted to keep sailors aboard the ship between the Comp 2X and the actual start of the deployment. And then that, therefore leads to, 9-month deployments as opposed to 7 or 8-month deployments. Now, once they're at sea, a critical kind of pressure release valve for crews is port calls. If you're steaming through Asia, you might stop in Vietnam or Japan, or just get off the ship. But in the days of COVID, for now, at least as we record this, that's not the case, and those port calls aren't happening. So, a sailor is seeing their rack, their workspace, and the endless horizon of the seas around them for months on end. Based on our reporting, these long deployments in the time of COVID are really taking a toll on sailors and their families. To be frank, a lot of sailors and families are feeling pretty screwed by Big Navy at this point. These deployments, the double pumps, especially of the Theodore Roosevelt and the Eisenhower, are leading a lot of sailors and families to question their future in the Navy. Several of them have told us that they plan to do 20 years. They plan to make a career in the sea service, but 2020 has just changed that calculus for them.
Our experience is that sailors will do amazing things and they'll try very hard to accomplish their missions. They're by and large great humans and do their very best. But it's a lot to ask of somebody to be underway continuously for 211, 212 days without a port visit. And it's a lot to expect of them to be sequestered prior to getting underway and sequestered after coming back. And it would not be at all surprising to find that there's less willingness to stay in the Navy after these types of deployments take place.
It remains to be seen, how these deployments and this operations pace and the COVID mitigations will affect either recruitment or retention. But anecdotally, we're being told by spouses and sailors that, this is a breaking point. An aircraft carrier is a marvel of human engineering, but it's a zillion parts that need maintenance and care. And when you push any ship back out to sea without adequate maintenance time, it's going to take time off the ship's life. But analysts tell us that that's even more pronounced with a vessel like an aircraft carrier. So there's a lot of fear among those who have served before and now kind of make their living analyzing the Navy that double pumping the Ike and the TR is ultimately going to send those ships to an early grave, so to speak. It's going to take years off of their service life potentially, and it just erodes readiness in general. And the fear is that if you push these carriers back out to sea only a few months after they came home, perhaps they might not be available, God forbid, should an actual war break out where they're needed.
In terms of the overall impact on the ship, it comes back to this spiral of a ship comes back from a long deployment with a lot of problems that have to be fixed. It goes into a maintenance availability, and that takes time, and frequently, more often than not, it's the case that the availabilities go longer because so much has to be fixed. And as a result, the schedule for the next ship is affected, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. It's very hard for the Navy, the surface Navy in this case, but for aircraft carriers or submarines or anything else to get out of that. And so not only is it potentially affecting the morale and well-being of the crews, it is definitely potentially having an impact on the ability to get ready for some major contingency.
Thanks, Jeff. For more on that story, visit NavyTimes.com.